So you've gone through your internship applications, passed the tests, and have gone through your interviews, and now you've landed yourself an internship at a law firm.
Whether you're here because you're wondering how to do your best, feeling anxious before you start, or just curious about what law firms like to see, we've got your back.
Hey guys, welcome back to our channel. Today we want to share with you our tips for making the most out of your law firm internship as two lawyers with about 10 years of combined experience. We've both spent a fair share of time working with interns. At my current firm, I do quite a bit of graduate recruitment, and each year I usually end up supervising an intern or two.
While there's no magic formula per se for excelling during your internship and guaranteeing a position at the firm after you graduate, there are a variety of things which are good to do and which will help improve your experience. But before we get into it, if you enjoy this kind of content, remember to hit that like button below and consider subscribing if you want to see more.
So our first tip is to make sure that you're proactive and communicating, and we're going to approach that from two angles. Firstly, when you're asking for work, and secondly, when you're asking questions about anything you're unsure about. During an internship, there's usually one person at the firm who's assigned as your supervisor, and they're kind of responsible for getting you work to do. So even if you don't go out and speak to anyone, it's likely that some work will come your way. However, we recommend not just sitting and waiting for the work to come to you, but to take a more proactive role and to speak to people actively about work that you can help them with. Not only is this a great way to show that you're proactive and willing to work, but it also means that you get a more holistic experience during your time at the firm, which is really kind of the point. So it's generally a really good idea to let people know when you have a bit of free time or a bit of capacity to take on some extra work, as sometimes just by bringing it up with people, they'll realize that they might have something that's suitable for you to take. By approaching other people as well, this also increases the number of different people that you get to work with, meaning that your experience is more varied and you'll have more people giving you feedback at the end of the internship. Now, of course, this has to be balanced against the fact that you don't want to be taking on too much work and overloading yourself during the internship. Firms are looking at the quality of your work first and foremost, so if you take on too much and you're not able to spend enough time on each task to do it well, that will ultimately end up to your detriment. Sometimes law firms will ask interns to do certain exercises like mock client pitches or presentations, and it's really important to make sure that enough time is dedicated to those as well, since they're usually assessed. I've personally seen a lot of interns come through and kind of overpromise and underdeliver and just take on way too much work to do it all properly.
In addition, if you have concerns about your workload, such as if you're being given so much work that you don't think you can complete it in time, or if there's a scheduling conflict with deadlines, be sure to speak up and let people know as soon as possible. It can be tempting as an intern to just say yes to everything because you want to show that you're hardworking and a team player. But in reality, it doesn't leave a negative impression at all if you speak up when you're too slammed to take on more work responsibly. Instead, it actually demonstrates that you're able to manage your workload and also that you're able to communicate about any potential issues, which is always an important skill when working as a lawyer. Keep in mind also that any issues with work allocation will be handled by the people who are assigning you the work, and that any scheduling conflicts with deadlines aren't your problem. However, you do have to speak up when there's an issue so that people know and can deal with it accordingly. We also want to take a moment to recognize that speaking up will be a bit harder for some people to do than others, and that's normal. As someone who's naturally a little more shy and introverted, I generally found speaking up and turning down work super uncomfortable. Over time though, it did get easier as I did it more and practiced it like I would with any other skill, so don't worry if it's something that feels a bit more difficult for you at the present moment.
So the second area where being proactive and communicating is really important is when you're given work that you're not really sure you understand or you need to clarify some instructions. As an intern, you're really not expected to understand everything, at least not right away, and that's totally expected from the perspective of people that are supervising. Whenever I'm supervising interns, I kind of expect them to have a basic sense of legal principles from law school, but I definitely don't expect them to understand how we draft documents in practice. There's just no way someone would have that knowledge without spending a significant amount of time working in a law firm. If you don't understand something or you're not really clear on what it is you're supposed to do, it's definitely good to ask questions so that you fully understand the task before going and doing it. To put it differently, it's much better to ask questions and do the right thing rather than not ask questions and end up producing a work product that's not really what was asked for. And again, there's a balance here too. You do want to spend some time looking through the documents or understanding the instructions that were given to you to see if you can try to figure out what you need to do first. But you also don't want to spend too long or stay up super late trying to figure out something when it could take someone easily 1 or 2 minutes to just explain to you what you need to do. And more likely than not, when you're given work in a law firm, there's usually some element of time sensitivity in it, so it's really good to make sure that you ask questions as soon as you feel like you may not be able to figure it out yourself. On top of that, when asking questions, it's definitely a good idea to be specific and precise about the things that you're not really sure about. And it's always a good idea to go through the documents to try to figure out all the questions that you might have so you can ask them all at once, rather than going back to the supervisor and asking them one by one time after time again.
So, the second thing to keep in mind is that the people at the firm aren't just assessing whether the work you do is good, but they're also assessing whether you're a good fit and whether you're someone they would like to work with in the future. As a lawyer, sometimes you end up spending more time with your colleagues than with anyone else, so the people at the firm do want to know that you're someone they'll get along with on a personal level too. Now, this doesn't mean you need to be someone that they'll necessarily be good friends with, but someone that they can at least have a good working relationship with. Plus, since being a lawyer is a client service at the end of the day, the firm also wants to see that you'll probably be someone who interacts well with clients. While not every firm is looking for the same kinds of traits or personalities, because obviously culture varies from firm to firm, there's definitely a few attributes that generally sit well. As you can probably guess, this includes being polite and professional, but also having a good and positive attitude even when things get stressful or if you get negative feedback. If in just the span of an internship you show that your attitude goes downhill when things get difficult or you otherwise can't really manage your emotions in a professional manner, that's not a great sign. Of course, no one's perfect all the time, and again, this might be something that's a bit easier for some people to do than others for various reasons. But generally speaking, being able to maintain one's composure in stressful situations is a skill that's important for lawyers to have.
Something else that we find is really important is demonstrating the ability to work well with and get along with others. Teamwork is an absolutely massive portion of working in a law firm. Whether you're closing deals or running arbitrations, you're always going to be working with people in some way or another. Now, we do understand that the environment during an internship can feel a bit competitive because at the end of the day, the law firm is going to be hiring people out of that internship, and so you are technically competing with the other interns there. As a result, there might be a tendency to take on a kind of Hunger Games attitude and view the situation very much as you versus the other interns. So while you do want to be selected for that job at the end of the internship, it is important to demonstrate that you can play well with others as well. We recommend not really thinking about it as competing with the other interns and more thinking about just trying to do the best job that you can do and being the best version of yourself. Having a good attitude and being pleasant to work with, on top of producing good quality work, never goes unnoticed and is always valued. And to be honest, from the perspective of a supervisor, it's always nice to see when interns are willing to collaborate with each other and not treating it too competitively. And remember that doing internships are a great opportunity to build relationships and build your own network too, even if you're not offered a permanent position at the end. One of the recruitment partners that ended up giving me the job at the firm that I currently work for was actually a senior associate at a firm that I previously had done an internship at, where I didn't get a job. She actually interviewed me for the internship at that firm, and we stayed in touch afterwards. The legal industry is really small, and people will remember you, so always think about putting your best foot forward and being the best version of yourself in any given circumstance.
Our final tip is something a little different and which we've found really helpful over the years, and that's managing energy. To clarify, we're talking about your physical energy as a human being and not your vibes as a person, which we'll explain. So, while there's a lot of advice out there about having fun and enjoying your internships, which we're not disagreeing with, but let's be honest, internships can also feel like a stressful experience because of how much there is going on. New environment, new people, work you've probably never done before, and on top of that, there may be the pressure of trying to convert the internship into a permanent position at the firm after graduation. Between all of that, from the work to the firm activities and social events, you'll probably be pretty occupied both physically and mentally. However, as humans, the amount of energy that we have is finite, and each of these things, these tasks, these activities, uses up that energy. As a result, it's really important to manage your energy and to prioritize what is more deserving of your time, attention, and efforts. In the context of this topic, that would be your internship and your performance during the internship. So there's a number of ways that you can manage your energy, and we'll briefly go through a few that we personally practice. One straightforward way is just managing what you are literally spending your time doing. Given that your schedule may get very busy during your internship, it's probably not the best time to also schedule in a slew of personal social activities during that period or keep binge watching Netflix until 3 a.m. Now, I know this is not the most fun advice ever, but the amount of sleep and rest you get really does impact your productivity and your ability to handle stress, among other things. Your internship is also only a few weeks long, or maybe a bit longer depending on where you are, but either way, it's still a relatively short period of time. Given that that's the case, it's definitely worthwhile for you to commit yourself to the internship as much as you can during that time.
Another way that we manage our energy, and bear with us if this sounds a bit out there when you first hear it, is to manage our nutrition and eating in critical times. This isn't something that necessarily comes to mind when one is thinking about how best to optimize their performance during an internship, but we've long been advocates on this channel of being very deliberate about nutrition and thinking about how foods make us feel. So we're really deliberate about our nutrition and the things that we eat when we're really busy at work and need to be 100%, and we think the same principle applies when you're doing an internship. We've tried and tested this through the years, and today we want to share a few of the general principles that we adhere to ourselves. So firstly, we try to be really deliberate about our lunchtime food intake to avoid that slump in energy that comes right after lunch, often referred to as a postprandial slump. I mean, we've all had that experience of having a really big lunch and then trying to be productive afterwards, but finding that the first hour or two, we really just want to take a nap and not do any work at all. It's a lot harder to focus on your work, let alone do the best job that you can, when all you're doing is trying to fight your hardest to stay awake. And frankly, it doesn't really look great if someone walks by your desk and sees you asleep or struggling to stay awake. But this is definitely a situation you can do something about to try to avoid. So without getting too into the nitty-gritty of it all, we try to avoid the postprandial slump by trying to avoid eating a super carbohydrate-dense meal at lunch, and also simply by not overeating. Sugar consumption is also something that we try to minimize as much as possible during lunch. To clarify, we're not saying to people that they should completely cut out carbohydrates or sugar or anything of that sort. We're also not advocating for any specific diets. Our principle here, which we live by, is really just about prioritizing what you eat when, and thinking about how productive you need to be after you eat that certain thing. For example, if you want to smash a large pizza, go right ahead. But if you're thinking of doing so right before you head off to court, I would think twice. We generally try to pick and choose the foods that we eat based on the things that we need to do that day. So if we need to be really productive, we'll try to eat foods that give us energy rather than ones that make us feel really tired and lethargic. I've talked about my personal struggles with food before on this channel and how thinking about productivity and how I wanted to feel after I ate food really changed my life for the better, and I'll link to that video up above. Another tip is to try not to overdo it on the caffeine. While this is a great short-term solution if you need a pick-me-up, it can ultimately lead to worse sleep and worse energy in the long run. As we've also discussed on this channel, it's also really important to try to balance your caffeine intake so that you're not completely reliant and dependent on it, if at all possible. So as we mentioned at the beginning of this video, there's a lot of things that one can do to try to maximize the experience as an intern in a law firm. And we'd love to hear from you guys, so let us know in the comments if you have any questions or comments on any of the points that we brought up. And we only covered a few of the main points in this video, but let us know if you guys want to hear more and we'd be more than happy to make a part 2. Thanks a lot as always for checking out our videos, guys, and click on this video for a video that the YouTube algorithm thinks that you'll like.